truly?
So I believe both, except for the echo part. So the part that feels like an echo is when the person who is grieving is looking so hard and focusing so much on seeing their loved one or having some kind of evidence of their loved one or a sign from their loved one that they can pull that to them. And they'll see a cardinal in a tree, or they'll see coins in a line, and they'll be like, oh, that's Johnny.
So like the idea of like ghosts feel so spectral anomalies. They're kind of like was it like the self-fulfilling that they come from us as opposed to coming from someplace else?
No. That was in speaking to the echo. So there's two sort of phenomena that I believe exist. So death doesn't stop our existence, right? It's more like we finally take off this big clunky physical suit of a body, and we go back and we remember our true form, which is positive energy consciousness. It's a much lighter, much more ethereal form and state of being. And as such, those of us who are still in our physical, heavy, clunky suits, most of us can't see them anymore.
All right, then, and I apologize if this like makes it even broader than the initial question. Then are we original beings, or have we always existed and will always exist? Do you think that
life is eternal?
Well, I'd say that if you say that death is only one stop, then is there another death after that? But that's a question that who could know? But just in your thought process, so it's like reincarnation. Is that
absolutely
okay?
We've all had many lives, and the universe itself has had many lives. It expands and expands and expands and expands until there's nothing in the middle, and then we're all one, and then we fragment apart again and expand and expand and expand and expand.
So in these lives that we lived, are we always human?
Oh, I don't think so.
Are we always earthbound?
No.
Okay.
No. I believe that Earth is like the boot camp. It's like a fast track class that you come to get the poop kicked out of you. To grow your soul. It's like you can get multiple credits for going to that place.
So this reality is just the gym, right?
Kind of.
Right. Okay. So we can power up and get to the next point. The next point, better point, or is it just a new point? These are all these questions that keep me up at night, because I think about the idea like this idea of a multiverse where anything and everything is happening at the same time. I had this thought not too long ago, and a friend of mine sent me a text message to a link to like when we go to sleep, we visit a different dimension, a parallel world, and it's and it made me think that if we go to sleep and there's parallel world, is there a chance that we are visiting the same place? Is it the parallel world, or is it a parallel world, right? And even if we were both in that same spot, what would happen if I recognized myself as me and you recognize yourself as you, but I was the size of an electron and you were so large as to be indistinguishable from the universe, from like a galaxy, right?
Wow.
Right? Big stuff.
Michael Voigt just joined in to say, I don't like this kind of thinking. Tends to diminish the importance of the real world and the injustices in it.
That's how I feel all the time. That's why I generally don't talk about like this stuff, because it's like, you know what? Redlining still happened, right? Jim Crow still happened. Like we're still living with the big issues of the things that are happening right now. So I'm like, yeah, I got school loans. I can't dwell on this too much. Anyway.
And I don't disagree with that either. Like, I mean, I think balance is key. And so if you get lost in your head to a point where this plane doesn't matter.
I love how you allowed us to absolutely crash the ship.
Yes, thank you, babe.
Yeah. It is. This has been the most fascinating 5 minutes of my life.
You lie. Hi, baby.
Hi.
Hola, amigos.
Say things.
So Brandon asked me, RJ, would Urban Meyer consider coming back, or you think his health would still keep him out? Backstory here, for those of you that don't know. Urban Meyer stepped down as head coach at Ohio State last year following health concerns for a second time. It's his second retirement, but he's won national championships at the last two places that he's retired from. Florida in 2008, of course, and then Ohio State in 2014. We all expect him to continue to be a TV analyst because he's really good at it, and there's less stress, and he gets more family time, and that's really been the issue with him and his family going back to his time at Bowling Green State, which is not a state anymore. It's just Bowling Green. At least I think. Corey, you'd be able to tell me that. But I enjoy talking about whether or not Urban Meyer is going to return. I think in the current climate, he's not going to return because, well, he's made millions and millions of dollars. He also owns a pint house in Columbus. He collects $100,000 a year as a special AD assistant at Ohio State. And there's not really a place for him to go right now. You know, maybe next year, but it'd be hard to see that. And the thing that I think most people would forget about it is wherever he goes, he's going to have to start from scratch. And while Ohio State was a place that he wanted to be, and that was the only job that he wanted to take at the time, folks wanted to throw him into the race for the USC job that is no longer available. But it would have been a really good time to be the USC head coach because they returned so much. I mean, they have one of the highest returning productions of any college football team in the country right now. But from a home and life standpoint, babe, I'm going to put this into you. Like, if I had an opportunity to retire doing what I'm doing and everybody was fine, everything was set, would you want me to continue to do this if it was going to cause stress? Remember, I'm really good at it, but it would cause stress and family time would go on the floor.
I mean, I would try to keep my personal desires on the back burner because I also know that for you being idle, I mean, you don't really know how to play and just chill at life. You've got to be making, grinding, creating, doing. So if you had something else that you felt equally good at and passionate about doing instead, that would be one thing. But I would never ask you to just, let's just go to Aruba for a month. That's not who you are. You don't know how. But I still love you.
I would very much like to go to Aruba for a month, so we're
okay.
talking, since we're talking about it.
Well, we can come back to that.
Now, from the football standpoint of that, I mean, I think there's a lot in common there. You talk about being idle. Football coaches are used to routine. They're used to doing a million things all the time. They're used to being the most important thing in the room most of the time, and they're used to being very, very good at what they're doing because life outside of football is not something they've had to encounter a whole lot of. I mean, one of my favorite stories of Lincoln Riley is that he doesn't remember the garage door code to his house as he has a photographic memory about football, which, tells you everything you need to know about Lincoln Riley. Mm-hmm. But we're in this very weird place now where the XFL season has been canceled. So I saw this in the chat, and I'm going to bring this into the conversation. Either one of you pick it up. But Urban Meyer to the XFL feels like a good move if that's something you wanted to do because it would raise the profile of the XFL even more than it is already, which is remarkable when you think about it because they did a whole lot of good with that league already. But I can only imagine what it would be like for somebody to have Bob Stoops in their league along with Urban Meyer in their league as they're trying to really get it off the ground and start to make some money. It hasn't. But do you think that Urban Meyer going to the XFL as opposed to returning to college football or going to the NFL is a good idea? I mean, more prestige when the NFL and whatnot. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to add, I don't know where all the XFL teams are because I'm... Lame. Does Columbia have one?
Ron, do you know where all the XFL?
That's where he's rooted, right?
Yes, that's where he's rooted.
Yeah, I can name 3: L.A., Washington, Dallas. Is there one in Sioux Falls? Beats me, but I think that going to the XFL would be for Urban Meyer would be pretty good because I know like this dude has a history of health problems, and the amount of stress that he would get from running an organization that is failure is within their business plan. Like if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and we move on. If he goes to another high profile job, he's going to be under those high profile conditions again. And I mean, kind of like Bob Stoops going to whatever his XFL team is in Dallas. It's one of those opportunities. Like there's nothing wrong here if I crash. I can coach to for myself as opposed to other people. Because I honestly think that Urban Meyer likes to coach football, and it's kind of a shame that he's had to retire as many times as he has. Kind of like it's a sad story, for a millionaire football coach.
I'm going to see if I can't earn my sports talk show host merit badge here. Dallas Renegades, Houston Roughnecks, Tampa Bay Vipers, New York Guardians, DC Defenders, Los Angeles Wildcats, Seattle Dragons. I'm missing one.
San Jose Sharks.
No.
Montreal Canadiens.
What am I missing, guys? Dallas Renegades, of course.
Chattanooga
Of course
Lookouts.
I am. Dallas Renegades.
No, you led with them.
I did?
Yep.
Okay. So let's go back through it. There's one Florida team. There's one DC team. There's one New York team. There's one LA team. There's one Seattle team. St. Louis Battlehawks.
There you go.
That's 8. There we go.
Chicago?
No Chicago.
Mm-mm.
No Chicago. They did a pretty good job of trying to populate it in either major metropolitan cities where it's going to be warm in February or warmer in February, or near other NFL fan bases where they would be starved for football. So I think that's interesting. I want to address the title of this video, though, because I don't want to be the content creator who trolled everybody. By the way, Carvin, ain't nobody going to get after me, including my mama. Laurel's her favorite person. So you want to take up the religious conversation
That's
with
an
her,
exaggeration.
you can do that. However, I said Oklahoma and Texas football versus SEC football featuring Laurel and Ron in the title, which that's Laurel, that's Ron. You get it. Oklahoma, Texas versus the SEC is pretty much where we're at right now because the SEC is so utterly dominant. And I led with this because Tennessee and Oklahoma play this year. You might have heard. And then Tennessee's got to travel to Norman this year. And I'm not feeling really good about Oklahoma really getting out of there unscathed. I still think they get the W because they're more talented at quarterback, whether or not it's Jared Guantano or Brian Meyer or Harrison Bailey. Although I don't know who rated Harrison Bailey a 5-star because I think that's a misevaluation. But their offensive line is going to be really good. They get both the Mays boys. If Cade Mays is immediately eligible, then they get even more solid because Trey Smith is there. Eric Gray and Ty Chandler each average about 5 yards a carry. Matter of fact, when I was doing my prep for this show, I read a Vols beat writer write that Ty Chandler's 4.9 yards per carry left something to be desired, which is not a sentence that I think that anybody should ever be allowed to write, ever. If you average 5 yards a carry, you're really damn good at playing running back. But Eric Gray also went for 246 yards on like 25 carries against Vanderbilt. It's Vanderbilt, but it's still nearly 250 on the ground. So what I'm saying is they returned both of their star tailbacks. They returned an offensive line that's just awesome. And Alex Grinch ain't really fond of his defense right now. But then again, I don't know when the man has ever been fond of it except in games. So knowing all of that, I'm looking at Texas and I go, okay, they got to battle LSU this year, in a year in which LSU ranks near the bottom, like 127th out of 130 teams when we're talking about returning production. Now, they had 16 guys go to the scouting combine, and, you know, they had the Heisman winner at quarterback, and they had a Biletnikoff Award winner at wide receiver. They return the Biletnikoff Award winner. They lose the Joe Moore Award offensive line. They lose the starting quarterback. And they're going to be really, really young on the defense because they lose both middle linebackers in Jacob Phillips and Patrick Queen. They also lose their best edge rusher in Kavlon Chasen. They lose the Jim Thorpe Award winner in Grant Delpit. But if Texas doesn't beat LSU after all of the things that I just listed, in a year in which Texas returns, one of the best returning rosters in college football this year, you could easily see Oklahoma and Texas getting pounded by Tennessee and LSU. And then, again, you're back to the laughingstock of Power 5 football in that Oklahoma wins the Big 12. They go to the college football playoff. They get beat down. September is going to be a make or break month for Oklahoma and Texas football. And the SEC, really, but you ought to beat Tennessee if you're OU. And you ought to beat LSU if you're Texas. So the idea of being embarrassed is really what I want to talk about here. And I can only imagine how it would feel if both OU and Texas took L's to SEC teams that ain't supposed to win the Southeastern Conference title this year. To which I would ask, am I being too hard on them, Laurel? Because I feel like I'm just hard on both of these teams all the time. But then again, I expect them to win every game.
You are, because you love them. You're invested in them.
There's nowhere to go besides being hard on OU because they're a win to 2 wins away. To be soft on them means that they don't make the playoff. So yeah, you'd love for them to. I'm not Laurel. You would love for them to not get embarrassed, but actually you absolutely do not want to get beat by the tire fire that is Tennessee. But
I want to jump in there right quick and say
go ahead.
Tennessee,
yeah,
from October 26th to January 2nd didn't lose. Mm-hmm. They started 1-4, they finished 8-5. Yeah. I don't know that they're a tire fire. And also shout out to Rico, my cousin, is in the chat, and he's a big Rocky Top fan. Okay, well, shout out to Rico.
What up, Rico?
Because if you're talking about losing to a team that doesn't win the SEC, then the top 3 teams. So to be hard on them, I guess you want them to be at least number 2. Mm-hmm. I don't know. This one's kind of tough because I definitely don't want to lose to Tennessee, but losing to LSU is not the worst thing in the world, seeing as they were one of the best teams. And if Texas loses to them, I guess Texas and OU are in the same boat of losing to top tier teams.
Can I say something crazy?
Sure. Crazy.
I have never understood the purpose of conferences other than, hey, geographically, this is where you're at. So why don't they just throw everybody in based on size of school and then just bingo?
That's actually a really good question in that it's all about money. Seriously.
Yeah.
The reason the Big 12 exists is because the networks, in particular ABC, pointed out to the Southwestern Conference, hey, Rice doesn't add anything here. we need you to get rid of one of these teams, and we need you to go team up with Nebraska and Oklahoma so that we can have some better games to televise because we're leaving money on the table here. And that's the reason why so many people wanted to get into the SEC with the last conference realignment is Missouri and Texas A&M stand to make a boatload more money just by joining that league and raising the profile of their football. Now, A&M ain't won anything since 1939. And by won anything, I mean a national championship. Missouri's trash. But when you're talking about grouping these teams together based on size, a lot of people are for that because then you get to see better games and you don't have to have things like Appalachian State showing up to ruin your big-time college football wet dream of a college football playoff. Mm-hmm. But seeing as the committee's never going to let that happen in the first place, I don't care. I personally like the idea of perhaps having an Appalachian State get an opportunity to win a national championship because I would like to see such a thing before I die. I would like to see a Boise State get a shot. Maybe they'll get ran. Maybe they'll end up, Butler. But even as it stands right now, if you put all the blue bloods into a conference and just called them blue bloods, everybody would watch that, but we'd also watch Mason Fine at North Texas because we like football. But it's a good question, and what it really does come down to is money. Like, nobody cares about Baylor football until Ann Richards puts her thumb on the scale and says, "Hey, put my team in this new league." And did the same thing with Texas Tech. Who the hell is Texas Tech? Mm-hmm. Nobody cares. You know, the teams that they care about in this conference are Oklahoma and Oklahoma State, or Oklahoma and Texas. Whereas, like, find me the big roaring fan base for Oklahoma State. Find me the big roaring fan base for Kansas. Like, would anybody
Alums.
care? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And what that comes back to is how many alums do you have? Like, Texas has 1 million. Like, their alumni base is bigger than Oklahoma's.
Right. So, like, I like
It's the
I
only
like this
reason anybody
idea.
likes Texas too. No, I'm sorry.
No, it's true, though.
I know.
No, like, we had this conversation a while ago about why do people like Texas, and it's just because they pump out a lot of people that like Texas or went to Texas, as opposed to Texas being a classically good ball club.
Right.
No, I like the idea of organizing conferences by size so that you'd have Wisconsin and Texas and Penn State and Florida and the University of California system all in one conference. And so you have your blue bloods versus your mid majors. I'd love to see that at the end of the season. I truly would.
At the end of the season.
Yeah.
Not at the beginning, like Hunger Games, when you're pulling them out.
Well, no, like, I mean, yes, Hunger Games, but college football. I would like that.
I would too.
So, shout out to Abdul Muhammad right quick, because it's 3:20 a.m. over there in the Philippines, and he is watching this.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, Abdul is like a P1 on the channel. And
Welcome,
I appreciate
Abdul.
that.
Is
Right.
it warm there?
I mean, he'll probably tell us here in a minute. Shout, man. And Corey stays in this because he's also saying, look, how does this work for basketball? To which I'm going, nobody really cares how this works for basketball because basketball does not generate enough money. Unless you are Kansas or Duke or even North Carolina, but even that's on the wane, you don't factor in with revenue. And if you don't factor in with revenue, you don't get a say on what's going on with the conference. Because, yeah, you have basketball-only conferences like the Big East, but they don't really make any money now, do they? You know, Jim Boeheim and Syracuse can only bring in so much. You know, it's really about the Orangeman football, which is why they spend so much money on guys like Dino Babers trying to get them back to good. If football didn't run the world, we wouldn't be talking so much about football. But even now, we're in a absolute lull for sports. And what are we talking about? The NFL Players Association passed its voted yes on the CBA. Which the take is not that they voted yes on the CBA or even that it's 1,019 to 959. It's that there are 2,500 voting members in the NFLPA and 522 of y'all didn't vote. Y'all are the worst. I hate y'all. I can't stand that.
Give me this good collective bargaining agreement drama. I love it.
But it's
Rub it on
true
my
because
skin.
now you got 2 franchise tags, right? You got your non-exclusive franchise tag and your real franchise tag. Yeah, you're getting 1.5% more in the revenue sharing, but now you got to play a 17th game where guys that are used to making about $1 million plus or even $650,000 are going to get capped at $250,000. They're taking it from 26 padded practices to 18, but everybody knows you're not going hard in practice. You're going hard in games, and that one extra game is going to destroy you. Mm-hmm. And then you didn't get any health care. And nobody's going to give lifetime health insurance to a football player. It's just not going to happen. But we care so much because we're talking about that 1.5% being close to $5 billion that's going to go into the pool. Now, how does that factor into what we were talking about with these conference realignment things? Same difference. Because Texas makes more money than any other institution in all of college sports. They brought in $215 million last year. Number one. That's why we care about Texas. That's why people continue to root for Texas, is because they believe with all this money, they should be better than they are. And it's always going to be sexy to bet on Texas because there are enough Texas people to float it. Yeah. This is why everybody wants Sam Ehlinger to be the next great quarterback.
They got enough money to make it possible.
I put a headline of Spencer Rattler and Sam Ehlinger in a title because I wanted to see if this would actually work. And I gave it substance, and I told the tale of the tape. But I'm essentially talking about a kid that hasn't played significant football at the college level and another guy who has more touchdowns responsible for than any other quarterback that is returning next year. And now here we are.
But if most of the decisions are influenced by money, is a losing team that still makes $200 million?
Yeah.
Is that a loss?
No, it's not. It's good business. They went 8-5, and they're still going to bring in $200 million.
So
Yeah, I mean,
What-
you're rapidly approaching lovable losers territory on that one. I guess Texas is going to be what, the Cubs or the old school Red Sox of college football?
Red Sox, because they've won a national championship in the last 20 years.
Yes.
I guess that's the comp, because the Red Sox haven't won much since they won something in, like 3 times in those 10 years.
They were pretty
But
good.
even I think the Cubs fits, right? Because the Cubs won a World Series, okay? And everybody's loved the Cubs for a very long time. But also factor in this, you could watch the Cubs, just like you could watch the Braves for a while there. And so there are a lot of Braves fans that wouldn't have existed if Turner hadn't put them on TBS all the time. And it was a win. Texas thought they were going to be able to do that with the Longhorn Network. Turns out the Longhorn Network is actually just a bad idea because there aren't that many people that actually care about Texas volleyball. I mean, no, seriously.
No, yeah.
That's what it is. If you just showed Texas football on the Texas Longhorn Network, it probably makes money. It probably makes money. Even as Texas ain't been good, like legitimately good, since 05. And they have not actually been what we think of as a blue blood ever. Because when you're talking about Texas football, the legacy is you've won a national championship once in the last 30 years. And you also are the last all-white team to win a national championship. So you get to carry that forever.
I was about to say, go ahead, rock that one proud.
You also really want to look around and say everybody wants to come to Texas when really I'm doing my due diligence and I'm talking with the kiddos, and the kiddos are like, no, not only do we not want to come to Texas, they don't treat us right. You know, you've seen Latrell McCutcheon on this channel say, nah, Texas can take their offer back because they were so late to getting to me, and I'm from Austin. I think that it's really about what you brought up, Laurel. It's the money. Like, Joe Jamil flooded that university with so much money that there's more than one statue of him on campus. Matter of fact, I love the story of Joe Jamil because it's Joe Jamil Field that they play on at Darrell K. Royal Stadium. And the first game they played, I think they took an L to SC or UCLA. Either way, he looked around and was asked, well, how does it feel about having your name on the field? It says, can I pay him to take my name off the field? Because that on that field right there was a disgrace. Ooh. And I'm going, see, that's the kind of booster that I need. But then again, Boone Pickens did the same thing, right? He said, I want a better football team. And got one because they started throwing money into it. But then he also turns around and looks at Mike Gundy and says, I wish we'd beat Oklahoma a little bit more. Well, yeah. I mean, now we got Lincoln Riley, who's been head coach at Oklahoma for 3 years, and he's got one more Bedlam win than Mike Gundy, who's been there for 15 years. Because it does come back to money. And that's why Houston, I think, is on the way up. It's because Tilmer Fertitta has basically said, how much money is it going to take for Houston to be relevant again? Cool. I'll give you all this money. Go make it happen. And that's college football, right? College football is about the money. But then again, as we're talking about this, what isn't about the money?
Not like, well, everything's about the money. Like it's the more money you pump into the thing, kind of like think of this as one step below what European soccer. Throw as much money as you can at it, you're probably going to get a championship.
Manchester City.
You're probably going to get what?
A championship.
A championship. Yeah.
Red Bull Leipzig. You know? Yeah, they're walking examples of this. I mean, and trying to buy your talent and buy your way into winning, which gets done. It just doesn't get done unless somebody is willing to sacrifice a lot of their income to do it. And that's where we get back to like football in the NFL. The Redskins ought to be really good, but Dan Snyder is not necessarily throwing a bunch of money at this thing. Jerry Jones continues to throw a bunch of money at this thing, and now he's got rid of the ginger clapper, I got some hope that Dallas Cowboys could be good. I heard you blowing out.
No, I was like, I'm talking spicy about my man. I'll continue.
So I'm thinking about all of these things, but I'm also thinking about how this goes individually for the kiddos, because we're in the name, image, and likeness bit here. But I kind of want to talk about the draft just a little bit. I kind of want to talk about what's next for some of these kids that are returning, because like we've already penciled in Trevor Lawrence as the number 1 overall pick in 2021, even as nobody seems to be considering that Justin Fields could arguably get that spot based on how he performs next year. Passed for over 3,000 yards, 41 touchdowns versus 3 interceptions, also rushed for over 500 yards. He's also a full 2 inches taller than Tua Tagovailoa, which matters to some of y'all that height is. But then Trevor Lawrence is 6'6". Yeah, well, Trevor Lawrence is also hot and cold. And Trevor Lawrence has played with some of the best tools we've ever seen, right? Travis Etienne ought to rush for 2,000 yards if he gets as many carries as J.K. Dobbins. You know, T. Higgins is going to be a first round draft pick. Show me the first round draft pick playing wide receiver for Ohio State right now. You might get to Garrett Wilson in like 2022, but you ain't getting there today. Why are we still talking about Trevor Lawrence as the number 1 overall pick when nobody saw Joe Burrow coming this year or Kyler Murray coming last year? I like the spontaneity that college football can provide in some ways, and I think this is one way. But knowing that Justin Fields also finished as a Heisman finalist last year and Trevor Lawrence did not, on what many people, myself included, thought was going to be the team to win the national championship, why are we still giving Sunshine the benefit of the doubt?
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Do you think that Trevor Lawrence is, for the past couple years, the worst starter on Clemson? Is this... I'm not saying this. I'm just asking questions. Is this kind of like Jamarcus Russell, where we have a supremely talented team where somebody's putting up very good numbers, but they might not be the reason why it goes?
I'm going through my skull right now of the worst starters on that Clemson offense, and he's not it.
Okay.
Maybe Amari Rodgers, depending on how you feel about him coming back from injury. Good, he came back from injury really, really fast. But I can make an argument that Trevor Lawrence was a better player last year than T. Higgins. It's just T. Higgins is 6'4", 230 pounds, and has a catch radius that is from, state line to state line.
Okay.
Travis Etienne was the best player on that offense last year. That I know for sure, and him returning is a huge deal because I thought that he should have gone in this. But no, it's an interesting question. It's just I think he's a top 10 pick. I think he goes to the first 3 picks. I just don't think that he's the number 1 overall pick right now. Today, I got Justin Fields doing that because Fields is much more of a compliment to what you're doing. Fields is also faster. Fields has also demonstrated that he can do more with less. And that's kind of the knock on Joe Burrow right now. He had so many weapons last year. So many. That it's really hard to say what he was responsible for. Same thing with Tua Tagovailoa. Here's one. All right. Babe, you know the story of Sam Bradford and him being King Finesse?
No.
Okay. So Sam Bradford came out in 2010, one of 4 first-round draft picks for Oklahoma, and was the number 1 overall pick, got a $50 million deal. He was hurt and played behind bad offensive lines and got even more hurt. He also kept flossing people out of millions of dollars. When his shoulder blew up that last year at Oklahoma, BYU blew his shoulder up, and he wasn't any good. Now, Tua Tagovailoa has had injuries to his hip, injuries to his ankles. He has not played a full season of college football ever. Ever. He didn't play a full season in 2017. He didn't play a full season in 2018. He's not playing a full season now. Okay? He's had to be pulled from each one of those seasons at least for like a half because he got hurt. I'm beginning to believe that not only is Tua Tagovailoa injury prone, but I wouldn't draft him because I don't know that he's going to be around. When he's healthy, he's awesome. But you can't help me if you're not healthy.
Well, who was blocking for him?
One of the best offensive lines in football. Alabama. Yeah.
You would hope that you get at least 16 straight games out of my man. And I don't know if they did that. Well, at least in one season.
Yeah. And now you got to play 17 games.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And if you're the number 2 overall seed, you don't get a bye anymore. So you're probably playing 2 more games than you would normally if you make the playoffs. I don't trust the dude to be healthy. And now that I know that he's going to get drafted in like the first 5 picks, what do we know about those teams that are drafting up top? They suck. And if they suck, the last thing they're going to be able to do is protect their quarterback. You know, I look at the draft sometimes and I go, why are we drafting so many skill position players? Why aren't we drafting left tackles and left guards and right tackles? Because I can throw Billy Volek back there and be good if I got an awesome offensive line. I get the quarterbacks can change your fortunes, but they can't change your fortunes if they're not healthy. It bothers me that we're looking at football as a star-driven sport sometimes. Because everything is dependent. The quarterback touches the ball more than anybody else, but if there aren't at least 5 guys that are going to block for him and do a good job of doing it, you get him killed. Which is why I'm worried about Spencer Rattler more than anything else. Because it's my job to pay attention to these things, so I'm listening to Lincoln Riley talk about the offensive line at OU and how they weren't as good as they needed to be last year. Yeah. And he's going to do some mixing and matching on that offensive line. Wait, what? Adrian Ely was starting right tackle. You telling me he might be the starting left tackle? Does that mean that Eric Swince is not any good? Well, yeah, probably does, because R.J. Proctor started the last 4 games at left tackle, and he's a guard. I don't know. Maybe it's just where I am right now, because we've had this discussion. I've had this discussion with both you, Laurel, and you, Ron. Mm-hmm. And that I think I have a realistic view of what college football teams can do. Like I picked Alabama to win this year's national championship. But maybe I have a pessimistic view of what these teams can do.
But, I mean, when you have this pessimistic view, so if you don't believe Alabama's going to win, who are you falling back on? Clemson? LSU again?
Clemson.
OU?
Not LSU.
I was gonna say I thought you picked Clemson to win.
Okay.
Last year. Mm-hmm. Last year I did. Mm-hmm.
Is it the idea that realism is that parity? Like there's no parity here? Is that what people hate hearing? Is that what you're battling?
I think March is as good a time as any to have hope for your football team.
I will agree with that.
But
is there still hope if you're hoping for the fall of a dynasty? Like I don't care who. I don't care who
at this point, like if you are a fan of the team, most likely you're not a fan of Alabama or Clemson. So yeah, you would have to like by definition you had to be for the fall of a dynasty.
No, but that's
hopefully
what I'm saying.
somebody
That's
can
my
sneak
only,
in there.
Like I like anybody who will beat Alabama. Maybe.
Oh yeah, so there will be no monarchies here. All heads must fall. Bring out the guillotine for your old school big money blue bloods, right?
Then you got what you wanted then with LSU winning a national championship last year, right? Mm-hmm. Okay.
I mean, not exactly what I wanted.
Ooh. Okay. What do you want?
Well, I'm an Okie.
Okay.
I would love to see OU in the championship. I would love to see OU kick Bama's. Can I say ass on this?
You just did, but please don't.
I'm just kind of glad OU got there. Like, it's just nice to see them show up. So that's how I feel.
Ooh.
I'm just, when they make it to the playoffs, it gives me those warm feelings. So
that's also
how I feel.
I mean, that's a good discussion to have, right? Because North Texas is never going to play for a national championship in this current college football playoff model. It's just not going to happen.
Probably not.
Right. So being happy with how your team performed versus me, who pushes for absolute perfection and dominance, can you be perfect, is also a way of looking at it, right? Because to root for LSU, Alabama, or Oklahoma is to root for a national championship. That said, where the hell is Clemson in this? Because we continue to talk about Clemson as being this Voltron, and they are. But the idea that Clemson even exists in the way that it does ought to inspire more people. Because Clemson is in South Carolina. I'm willing to bet most college football players don't even know that. Where's Clemson? Mm-mm. In Clemson. That's where Clemson is. It's in Clemson, South Carolina.
What's it, Kentucky?
Right. And
next to Louisville?
And that in and of itself, that you could recruit to that place with its nasty high orange and zero tradition. Ain't won nothing. And then all of a sudden, over OU's dead body, announces itself and has been here the whole time and is going to continue to be here because they keep recruiting at a very high level. The idea that you look at the recruiting rankings and you see Clemson in the top 5 for the last 3 years is ridiculous, because that's like seeing Southern Miss.
It's a modern miracle that we have a new rivalry, and it is Clemson, Alabama.
Yeah. Like, that's not supposed to happen.
That's why I like it.
Right. So I
That's why I'll tune in every time to see Clemson, Alabama 13. Put it in my veins.
So J Bones asks, where is Notre Dame at? Are they even on the radar for the top 10 anymore? Notre Dame is a sleeper to win the college football playoff national championship this year. Let me walk that out. One, they got Clemson on their schedule in November. So you beat Clemson and you're undefeated. We're going to make you number 1 because you're Notre Dame. You have a built-in advantage because you have that thing that Clemson does not. Tradition. Everybody expects you to be good, Domers. And you get to live in this open marriage with the ACC where you only got to play 5 ACC games and you don't have to play for a conference championship, and you get to cherry pick your schedule. But in getting to cherry pick your schedule and having Clemson on it this year, you return Ian Book, who's been the best quarterback that nobody's talked about for some time and was this close to beating Georgia late at Sanford Stadium last year in a game that I actually watched, right? Because I was there to watch it. You also return a bunch of dudes that can play on your defense. I really like Kyle Hamilton at safety. And they lost 2 games last year. They lost to Georgia and they lost to Michigan. They lost to Michigan because Brian Kelly continued to keep throwing the ball in the rain, which is, I just don't understand. But yeah, we got to talk about Notre Dame like we had to talk about Notre Dame last year. Matter of fact, 2 things that we said last year was that all roads to the national championship went through Michigan and Notre Dame. Not so. But because of the schedules and because of what we expect those teams to be, we're going to have them in the top 10. And that's really what this turns into. So do we have to talk about Notre Dame as being relevant? Every year we have to talk about Notre Dame being relevant. On the other hand, the chances that they're going to beat Clemson? Nah. But if they beat Clemson, it's going to end up like 2012, where they end up in the national championship game because everybody knows that they're Notre Dame and they beat the hell out of Oklahoma. And then they get ran by Alabama. And that's what I don't want. But then again, the same argument is made of Oklahoma every year they make the college football playoff, which, by the way, has been the last 3 years.
I truly love to see Notre Dame get up there with the big dogs. I truly love to see it. So if I was going to make a dream Final Four, it would definitely Alabama, Clemson, OU, and Notre Dame. I know that there's other squads that would like to have a chance, but I really love to see the Golden Domers just
say more about that. Why?
do their best against Clemson or LSU's or the Alabamas of the world. Because doing what they need to do, which is show up with a loss, pretty much puts them in it, and show that I'd love to see the people, the haters, people that love Notre Dame say that no, they can play the games on their schedule, so therefore they should show up to they should get a shot at the national championship. I'm like, I don't think that's true. I think they might be not as good as people say they are. I'm just saying. I love to see it.
So I'm looking at Notre Dame's schedule right now for 2020. They play Navy to open, and I think that's supposed to be in Dublin, Ireland, but under the current climate, we'll see how that goes. Might get moved back here. Then they get Arkansas at Notre Dame Stadium. They ought to beat Arkansas, even as I really like Arkansas. They're going to beat them. Then they get Western Michigan. Directional Michigan's going to lose. They get Wake Forest, who I thought might have had a shot, but then store brand Cam Newton ended up at Georgia, so that's wash. Then they get Wisconsin, which is going to be interesting because they're going to be without Jonathan Taylor. So they ought to win that. They ought to beat Stanford. They ought to beat Pitt. They ought to beat Duke. There's the Clemson game that it went across. They ought to beat Georgia Tech. They ought to beat Louisville. USC might actually be a pretty good game with them and might end up the way that it ended up the last time that Notre Dame made the college football playoff, which I think is a thing people genuinely forget. Notre Dame made the college football playoff in 2018.
That they did.
Because they barely got over the top of a 5-7 USC. Barely. But they also had a Jim Thorpe Award finalist playing at corner, and it was the year in which Brian Kelly made the then unprecedented move of going, you know what, Brandon Wimbush, have a seat. Ian Book, you're up. And they did okay. Now that team is 2 years older. So I'm with you in that they show up with a loss, they're going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and now I'm having to rethink this about Oregon. Because I would have expected Oregon to be in this college football playoff based on how they performed to finish the season. Like, they beat Auburn, they probably get in over Oklahoma. We know that. They beat Arizona State, they get in over Oklahoma. We know that. Those two things didn't happen. But they did win a Pac-12 championship over a Utah team people thought was good. And they did win the Rose Bowl over a Wisconsin team we all thought was good. But their first two games, and you'll love this, Ron, are North Dakota State and Ohio State. Which seems to me like you could end up with two L's.
Yes. That's a heck of a way to start the season, huh?
So, babe, I think you're a closet North Dakota State fan.
You do?
Yes. Yes, I do.
What's that?
Based on
They are an FCS team, which means that they're a tier below the FBS. Both are Division I, but the way that things are structured, scholarships and so forth, so on. But North Dakota State went 45-1 over the last 3 years. North Dakota State tried to schedule Alabama. Alabama said no. North Dakota State tried to schedule Clemson. They said no. North Dakota State tried to schedule LSU. They said no. Because don't nobody want the problems with the little dudes. Because little dudes up in North Dakota State at Fargo, the Bison, have been thumping everyone.
Yeah, they're pretty good.
And now Oregon said yes. To which I'm going, oh no. Because Oregon lost Justin Herbert, who's going to be a first-round draft pick quarterback, but they also lost the offensive line, which is going to be suspect. They returned C.J. Verdell at running back, and then they have 3 studs on that defense that I absolutely love. One of them is going to be a sophomore. 2 of them are going to be true freshmen, Justin Flo and Noah Sewell, along with Kayvon Thibodeau. But I don't know who in their right mind decided that you should play North Dakota State and Ohio State in the same month back-to-back.
Oh, time out. Why did Alabama and Clemson and LSU say no?
Because they'll lose, or they could risk losing. Like, they reserved that spot for a team they can beat the hell out of. Like, Alabama had New Mexico State on the schedule last year. New Mexico State is trash, like actual trash, like really, really bad.
Yeah.
So how do they ever, within the system, get matched up? How does North Dakota ever get a chance? An athletic director calls another athletic director and says, "Can we make this happen?"
Yeah, a whole lot of phone calls.
Right. And that's what it had. Like, Central Florida, UCF was in the same boat for a while. Like, they wanted a home and home with Florida. And because, like, there's no, like, central matchmaker that makes the schedule outside of conference, right? So, like, in the Southeastern Conference in the SEC, those 14 teams get match made in the SEC office, right? That's what the league does. But for those 2 or 3 or even sometimes 4 remaining non-conference games, an athletic director makes another phone call to another athletic director and says, hey, you guys want to play? I think we make some money. I think you make some money. I think this is a good matchup, which is how, like, Oklahoma and Tennessee happened, right? But North Dakota State presents such a challenge, and the upside for you beating them is 0. No. If you beat North Dakota State, you should beat North Dakota State because you're Alabama or you're LSU or you're whoever or Oregon. But if North Dakota State beats you, they have made their program on your dead body.
Right. All these teams are playing the game in its entirety. So if you're Alabama or Clemson or LSU or you're starting off the game top 15 and you want to stay there. North Dakota State represents a risk that you just don't have to take.
Right. What would we get out of this?
Right. 100%. What would we get out of this? And I get somebody in here said, Michael Vogt says, and they pay them money. Well, that's the other part about this that's interesting. Like, if you have Oklahoma and Tennessee play each other, yeah, they pay each other to come there, but it usually works out in a wash because, you know, you pay them the same amount that they paid you.
And who gets that money?
The schools.
Which can mean all kind of stuff.
It can, and usually does, right?
Yeah.
But I'm bringing it up because North Dakota State is probably going to get close to $1 million, and I'll be able to look this up here in a bit. Matter of fact, I can probably look it up now if somebody already did an open records request here. But North Dakota State probably is going to get paid a mint to go over there and take what people think is a butt whipping. But if North Dakota State beats Oregon, they also get to empty their pockets. You're going to get to empty their pockets anyway. But wouldn't it be great if you could show up to somebody's house, beat them like like you're showing up to their house so they can ostensibly beat you up. You're going to get paid a lot of money just to show up and fight. But what if you beat them and you're not supposed to?
Well, I mean, yes, there's like the not supposed to, but if you're North Dakota State, you know what you can do, and if you're Oregon, you know that you have this is your first shot, you have to be not perfect, but you have to be good. And if you're North Dakota State, you're walking into a game that you believe is winnable. So it's almost all plus sides for North Dakota State. Right. If you go in there and you lose, like assuming that it's not a blowout, you lose. Cool, you still get paid, and it doesn't really hurt you in the long run because you're North Dakota State. You're gonna go to the playoffs and maybe get another championship. If you win, you got paid. Looks good on everybody. Thanks for the memories, and you just go on and make the playoffs and maybe win a championship.
Well, and talk about psyche if you lose though too. If you lose to the random.
Like if you're Oregon and you lose to North Dakota State, that's tough.
Like that would be residual.
Can't come back from that.
Yeah.
And that's also
I'm still there for it.
Right, and that's no, that's the reason that I'm there for it. But am I right in thinking that you'd be a North Dakota State fan?
I love an underdog.
At least for a game.
Well,
I love an uppity random going what?
I love that team because they're like a perceived underdog to me. Because like there's nothing underdoggy about North Dakota State. Speaking of which,
well then why haven't they ever had a chance?
Because they play in a lower division.
Oh, I missed that part. If you led with that, I apologize.
No, it's cool. Because like North Dakota State was an underdog according to Vegas when they went to go play in the national championship in January against James Madison. I made a lot of money, like a lot of other people made a lot of money. Going, wait a second, you're gonna give me points and North Dakota State?
So how does North Dakota State get some special rules then? Like say Notre Dame has all kinds of special rules.
Then you have to be Notre Dame for the last 100 years.
Pretty much.
Like that's really it.
It's a really good time for me to take a bio break.
You're a super.
Pardon. I know that's bad form, but
okay.
Please do.
I could have just put the screensaver on.
Oh.
So it's cool. We'll be right back. Yeah, I think.
Let's see what Wikipedia has to say.
I gotta take a look at this.
Did I kill it?
Wikipedia.
And we're back.
Sorry about that.
No, it's totally cool. Because this is good. This is good. So like, we're just doing a Wikipedia search to find out if Oregon is a private school, and it's not. So somebody's going to find out real quick how much they're paying North Dakota State to come to the crib and get this whooping. Like, I'm not picking against North Dakota State in this game. It's a fool's errand to pick against that game. Like, I don't get it. I don't know, man.
No, I mean it's a winnable. It is a winnable game for North Dakota State. So it's just somebody's just really good golf buddies and was able to talk somebody else into this. Because I don't know why you would. I don't know why, but I wouldn't pay for another team to believe that they had a winnable game in my house.
But Oregon has something to prove too. Then.
Oh, just because you have something to prove doesn't mean you have an opportunity to prove it.
Yeah, like in this situation, Oregon is in a no-win situation.
Yeah,
because they beat North Dakota State. Well, good, you're supposed to beat them. They're a lower division than you are. If you lose to them, you'll never live it down.
Yeah,
they'll say they came into.
Wait, let me jump in here. Babe, Are you just trying to make an argument for Oregon, or you believe that?
No, I was curious. Like
Okay.
if that is why they said yes,
Like
or if it really just comes down to money.
Like we still clown on Michigan for the Appalachian State loss.
100%, and that was brought up in the chat as well. People are thinking perhaps that Appalachian State becomes, or North Dakota State becomes Appalachian State because Appalachian State left the FCS essentially to join the Sun Belt, and they won a Sun Belt championship. I don't know whether or not that's going to happen with North Dakota State because they make a lot of money beating up on people in Missouri Valley, which, by the way, plays Missouri State in that conference. Missouri State plays Oklahoma, so round and round we go. But no, I kind of want to switch gears here. One, Dukin says hi, babe.
What up?
Yep, he's in here. And what was the question? Rico had a question. RJ, do you think Kiffin will destroy the Ole Miss program? No, I think you're just a salty Tennessee fan.
Oh.
I think Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin is a match made in heaven. I mean, that's straight up. I mean, Ole Miss is an old widower who found the hot girl, and the hot girl actually likes him. It works. Matter of fact, my favorite Lane Kiffin story about Ole Miss right now is him showing up off the plane for Florida Atlantic, getting off the plane, being handed the baby, asked to kiss the baby, hold the baby so that the baby can be told when he's older, Lane Kiffin held you, you're destined to play Rebel football. But also, dude takes the baby back and says, get yourself a burner phone, all right? Get yourself a burner phone. To which I love this because Hugh Freeze got pinched for not using a burner phone. Hugh Freeze, babe, had called escort services on the state-paid phone, and then somebody sent open records request talking about what the Bible thumper has had to say to escort services. Yeah. Nah, Ole Miss is going to be just fine. Ole Miss might even be good. Matter of fact, I'm trying to figure out a way if I can get to the Egg Bowl this year, which I believe is the day after Thanksgiving, where Mike Leach, who's my favorite football coach, is coaching Mississippi State. So Mississippi State and Ole Miss going to be two teams I watch a lot of football. They're going to be a lot of fun.
If they're not good, they're definitely going to be fun.
Yes.
And if they're not fun, they definitely won't be boring.
Yes. And that's the issue. Don't bore me. You know, even Nick Saban can bore me. But Lane Kiffin tweets like a regular person. Mike Leach tweets like a regular person. I enjoy that about millionaire football coaches. Be regular. It's fine. But also, Lane Kiffin has learned so much from being fired and ran out of town by Tennessee. Matter of fact, he had to get a police escort out of the state of Tennessee. That's how badly people wanted to hurt him for how he had torpedoed their program. Then he got ran out of USC and ran into Alabama. Then he got ran out of Alabama. So, babe, Lane Kiffin is the offensive coordinator for Alabama in 2016. They just got done beating Washington in a college football playoff game. But Lane Kiffin ended up getting fired before the national championship game. Why? Because he'd accepted the Florida Atlantic gig, and Saban said, I think you're just splitting your time too much, so just go take the Florida Atlantic gig, we'll be fine. Obviously, Lane Kiffin didn't like that. But it came to light later that Lane Kiffin was calling plays in that Washington game that they hadn't run in practice.
Huh.
Which is just a
That's
huge
sketch.
no-no.
That's pretty sketch.
Yeah. And Lane Kiffin has felt some kind of way about it ever since. So now that Lane Kiffin is coaching a team in Alabama's conference in their side of the division, I am so here for this because Kirby Smart at Georgia also has inspired this kind of ill will from Alabama fans. And he was his defense coordinator for like 9 years. Matter of fact, Kirby Smart just stole his strength and conditioning coach of 15 years at Alabama and made him special teams coordinator. So there's, everybody wants to go at the king, and nobody can seem to unseat him except Ed Orgeron that one time. I think Georgia did it that one time as well. But it's been Alabama's world. We've been living in it. J Bones just dropped a super chat in here. Is OU screwed at MLB this year? Mike linebacker. No, because the Mike linebacker is going to be Deshaun White. Might be screwed at will.
At what?
Weak side linebacker.
Oh.
Because Kenneth Murray Jr. is going into the NFL draft this year. And you got either Caleb Kelly or an absolute unknown playing middle or will linebacker. Well, not unknown. I mean, they played. So you got Brian Meade. You got Brian Asamoah. You got Shane Witter. You got Caleb Kelly. And you got Brian Meade as your options. Caleb Kelly is a 5-star who has flashed, but hasn't actually shown up and has played 2 different positions. Brian Asamoah had so many busts last year that I can't trust him to be in the right hole and fit when it's time to go and make a tackle because he'll just misdiagnose the play. Brian Meade is still a walk-on and also just not where he's supposed to be all of the time. Shane Witter is an early enrollee on campus, and he's really fast, and he's really athletic, and he can play both sides of the ball, but he's going to be asked to play inside linebacker, and you need somebody as an understudy to Deshaun White, because if Deshaun White gets hurt, then yeah, Jay, it ain't gonna be pretty. And again, I say this, you got to face a Tennessee team that returns the bulk of its starting offensive line and 2 tailbacks that average 5 yards per carry. It ain't a good look. Like, Brian Odom and Alex Grinch are going to have to earn their money this year. And I'm not so certain that they're going to be able to do it, especially when you take into account how Alex Grinch has been talking about the defense. He ain't excited. It's not a good look. So I wish I could tell you that, beyond Deshaun White, you're good, but you're not. This team is set up for 2021. It's not set up for 2020. That said, the hope aspect of this, the glass half full aspect of this is the 2019 team wasn't set up to make the college football playoff run. And then they're undefeated going to the Kansas State game. They take a 7-point L. They bounce back. Still haven't lost in November with Lincoln Riley as head coach. And they make the playoff. So they could, but you're going to need some absolute stud at will linebacker. And that's what Murray was. But I was the only person that said that Kenneth Murray Jr. was going to be a stud 3 years ago. People wanted to make fun of me for that. And now he's a fringe first-round draft pick. So when I talk about football, I know football. And if I'm telling you that I'm scared, it's because I know football. However, again, I will give it to Laurel and Ron. Am I overshooting it? Knowing what I just said about all these things, am I just fear-mongering?
Can't answer that because I don't follow OU football.
That's okay.
I trust what you say. If there's anybody that I know that puts in the research, it's you.
Same.
So if you say that it's not a worry now, but it could be, yeah, it's what it is.
A.B. Bailey, the door is over there. You can leave. The 2 people behind me, I love. And you don't have to be here. It's cool. It's been a college football talk show. It will be a college football talk show. It's been a college football talk show. Have a seat. Leave. These 2 people keep me sane. If you want me to continue to spew these college football facts, get off of them. Sorry.
No, go for it.
Punk. Oof. Torpedo, Tennessee is a very accurate assessment. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate that. All right, so some more salacious stories, and then we'll shut it down here in a little bit because people got stuff to do. I've told the story about Scott Cochran, but I want to fill you in, babe.
Okay.
So Scott Cochran's strength and conditioning coach at Alabama for like 15 years. Scott Cochran just took the job as special teams coordinator at Georgia.
Yep.
The head coach at Georgia was the defensive coordinator at Alabama and was part of that original 2007 squad.
Yep.
Okay. So Cochran apparently had been slowly like not actually doing his job over there at Alabama, and kind of had been doing, Ron, what's your phrase? Malicious compliance. He'd been doing what he was asked to do and not a whole lot else. And then Alabama had all these injuries last year. And I say this all the time. Whenever you get a bunch of kids that get injured, the first person to look at is the strength conditioning coach. Because, like, let's say I'm a trainer. If everybody I'm training is hurt, I'm probably going to get fired because I'm hurting everybody. So Cochran apparently wanted to take an on-the-field coaching job, which is a step up in more ways than one. And Saban said, I'm not going to give you an on-the-field coaching job because you don't have on-the-field coaching experience, and this is Alabama. To which he said, yo, man, I've been here for 15 years. If anybody knows how to do this job from learning how everybody else has done it, it's me. Okay, cool. Then go do it somewhere else or go start sitting in on special teams meetings so that you can learn the nuances of the game. Remember, Nick Saban's the guy that says, anybody can rise up quickly in this profession if they're good with computers. But the same guys that are good with computers can't tell me how to take a snap under center. And he's right. So the idea that he would give Scott Cochran a job doing something he's never demonstrated he can do, I thought Scott Cochran would be the first person to point out that that's farcical. But apparently not. Because Kirby Smart did exactly that. He said, I'm not only going to give you a job and a raise, it's worth it to me to take you away from Alabama so that Alabama doesn't have you. And then, I will coach you on coaching the special teams. Dang. Yeah! Ain't college football fun?
So, do people, actually suspect ill will?
Oh, yes!
In his final days?
100%! Because Alabama fans are, we make jokes, right? But they're actually on one. They'll fire Nick Saban if he goes 8-5. They really will. Because the thing that Alabama's not here for is losing. Not going to be here for this. And nobody's bigger than the program. Not even what I believe is the greatest college football coach of all time, Nick Saban. As soon as he starts slipping, they're going to give him the boot. And he knows that. He's also 70, and he's still been able to go out there and just go beat these people. I'm amazed by this. It's never going to get old to me. That said, Alabama and Georgia play each other in week 3, which, again, September is going to be such a fire month of college football. And it usually is because, we have these out-of-conference schedules like we were talking about North Dakota State and Oregon early on. So, I'm going to be glued to my television when these things happen. Looking at Alabama's schedule, they have USC to open. Then they get Georgia State. Georgia State beat Tennessee last year. Y'all remember that. Mm-hmm. Then they get Georgia, Kent State, Ole Miss, and then they go into their SEC schedule. But I really want to know what Georgia's schedule looks like. What does Georgia's schedule look like? So Georgia gets East Tennessee State, September 12th. That's a win. Then they get Alabama. Then they get ULM. So they got a pretty weak schedule. This is a trash schedule. Who allowed this schedule?
Risk averse.
East Tennessee, Alabama, ULM, Vandy, Auburn, all right. Missouri, trash. Florida, good, but they play that game every year. South Carolina, Tennessee. There might be 3 real contests on this schedule. Georgia, Alabama, Auburn, Florida, maybe Tennessee. Y'all better be talking mad trash about this schedule the way you talk about everybody else's schedule, because this is garbage. What is this? Who let this in? I hate this. Georgia fans, what are y'all doing? They're like, we played Notre Dame last year.
Can I ask?
Sure.
Who else would they be playing, and why? What should the schedule look like, if you will? For
Georgia?
Yep.
I loved having Notre Dame on the schedule last year. I think a Notre Dame caliber team, or a team with a large fan base. Put Texas on the schedule.
Another blue blood.
Or just an up-and-coming team. Put Central Florida yes, put an exciting game on the schedule. There you go. Put an exciting game on the schedule.
Yeah, because this is entertainment. Please entertain me. Right?
Oh, man. Yes. Please that's what it's supposed to be. I'm going to make sure I got this right, because somebody asked, do they open up with Virginia? And I'm like, I don't think they open up with Virginia. Yes, they do. You're right. They do open up with Virginia. So they get Virginia to start with no Bryce Perkins, Okay? Then East Tennessee, then Alabama. Virginia doesn't help the schedule, man. That's not an exciting game. Might as well put Syracuse on the schedule. If you want an ACC team, go get Clemson. Go get Florida State even. Florida State going to be trash, but they travel well. You know, it'll be fun. Thank y'all for indulging me. And I'm not well, yes, y'all, but these two people.
Thanks for letting me roll.
No, this was fun for me. And was it fun for y'all? Because if it's not, we don't have to do it again.
No.
Yeah, I had a great time.
Every time you invite me, I'm going to say yes.
Okay. If you are new to the channel, please hit the like and subscribe button. I'm going to try to get these two people in the room together to kind of sort of talk at things that I wanted to talk about, which I appreciate. They were having a very interesting conversation when we got started, and I kind of wanted to let that roll, so that's why we let that roll. You can listen to the audio podcast without the ads and whatnot, or the re-uploads on the RJ Young Show podcast, on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, wherever it is you get podcasts. We're going to continue to upload frequently, like we always do in the current climate, because that's what we do. Like I said, I don't do a lot of things well, but I talk pretty well about college football. Deuces.